Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome. It is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025, 6:31 p.m. This is a meeting of the Bolton Advisory Committee, and welcome everyone to another budgeting season. Okay, we've got a number of items on the agenda tonight. The first one is a reorganization of the committee. As everyone knows, we generally have three positions to fill: chair, vice chair, and secretary. In the past, we have had more than one secretary, so we could certainly do that again if folks are interested in doing that. Let's get rolling with selecting a chair for the year.
I nominate Bob.
I'll second that.
Anyone else interested? Okay. If not, is there, I guess we can vote on Bob Guerrero for chair. Let's see. Don?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
And I'll be an aye as well. Okay. Great. Vice chair. Craig did indicate that he would be willing to do it for another year if folks are interested in having him do that, or if there's other interest, we could certainly make a change.
I nominate Craig.
I'll second that.
Second that.
Any other nominees? If not, votes for Craig Lauer as vice chair of the advisory committee. Don?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay. Thoughts on having one secretary or two secretaries? Any opinions?
Sounds like, if I'm not mistaken, the AI is now going to do most of the secretary work. Is that correct?
It helps. It doesn't do
It helps.
all of it. Yeah. You still have to go through and check it. Where AI really struggles, from my experience, is identifying who the speaker is. So when we have those meetings where we have, 10 or 15 people on, you often miss or AI misses who is talking. But it does help.
I'm sure.
Okay. I'll throw out a nomination. I'd like to nominate Greg Myers as secretary.
I second that.
Second that.
Greg,
No,
are you willing to? Would you
no
be?
objection. I think I've been on the committee now 2+ years, so I think I'm ready to volunteer some more time. So I'd be happy to be nominated.
Okay. All right. Great. Roll call. Don?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I'm an aye. And Greg?
I as well.
Okay. There we go. Greg, maybe we should see how it goes for a few meetings. If you feel like you would really like a second person as a backup or something, maybe we can talk Don into being the second.
I'll talk with you, Bill, offline. Just best practices. I'm intrigued by the AI support. Totally get the fact that we still need a human checking the AI transcripts. No problem there. I just, like many of us, are on the road a lot for work, so I won't be able to attend every meeting. But if there's backup there in some form or capacity, I think I can manage by myself. But let's see how it goes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can provide you any help that you need, and you can always watch the YouTube recording.
Yep, will do.
Oh, you can see it in process. Oh, nice.
Great.
Okay, great, excellent. Thanks for that. So I think we're good to go for another year. All right, next item on our agenda is our future budget forecasting. So if you'll recall, one of the recommendations coming out of the last budget cycle, when we had an override last year, went through town meeting, and in all the discussions that we had, one of the suggestions was that we should try to do a better job of future budget forecasting to try to have a multi-year outlook. So we took on the task of trying to take a stab at that, and there's lots of different ways of doing this, but I think the advisory committee is in a good position to at least provide some thoughts and some input on a look ahead. So along those lines, a couple weeks ago, I emailed out an Excel model that we could one way to look at future forecasting. And so I thought we'd have a little bit of a discussion about that tonight. The intent here is that we use this model or a similar model, come up with some estimates, and then at a future date in the next month or two, advisory would make a presentation to the select board on what we're seeing in terms of a future outlook. So we have our select board here tonight, so they may see the sausage being made. So I apologize for that, but maybe it's a good insight. Okay, let me share my screen with the model that we put together. And as I mentioned, I think it's loading here. Okay, here we go. As I mentioned in the email, several of you are probably much better at this than I am. So, all suggestions are welcome here.
Well, my compliments. This is a good spreadsheet. I've seen a lot. This is excellent.
So this is based on Ninotchka's budget spreadsheet. So I just added a few tabs. I actually added 4 tabs. The one we're looking at now, the first tab up front is where you enter the inputs for the model and where you see the results. The next 2 tabs are the calculations, one on the revenue side, one on the expenditure side. And then the 4th tab, we'll talk about in a few minutes, but that's specifically looking at education. So I think this is a good place to start. The model inputs you're allowed to have here on the revenue side, you can update the new growth, the local receipts, and the state revenue, and it's as a percentage increase out into the future. And then on the expenditure side, there's actually 3 different models, so you can have, a worst case, a best case, and a middle of the road scenario. But there, you can select inputs for salary and wages, insurance and benefits, education, and then all other expenses. So you can kind of vary those as you'd like to. Okay, so I thought what we might do is have a little bit of discussion on what the right numbers are, the right percentages are in some of these cells. Right now, you can just think of them as placeholders. So we can start on the revenue side. For now, I have new growth as actually not increasing over time. It's been pretty flat over the last few years. It's been averaging about 200,000. So I'll flip to the revenue tab for a second here. So the new growth, you can see the new growth here in row 23. It's set at 200,000, except for the next 2 fiscal years. I took credit for the Alta Neshoba increase, and I split it over 2 years. So it's 375K in fiscal year 27 and 375 in fiscal year 28. plus the 200,000 that we have been typically seeing. I also artificially bumped up local receipts for the same reason for the next 2 years, and then it went to a standard, in this case, 3% increase. Okay, so thoughts on some reasonable numbers?
Hey,
I
just
like
a
what I saw. Go ahead, Greg.
oh, sorry, Don. Just a clarifying question. So on row 23, new growth, you say you set the growth rate to 0, but in row 23, I see non-zero numbers.
Oh, right, right. So these are the value. This is the value, the revenue we would see. It's just not growing. You know, it's not increasing year to year, other than the Alta and the Showboat bump.
Well,
Yeah,
then it
these
would,
are like the taxes for a new house, right? Or new, that Alta, the Showboat thing.
so these aren't new growth numbers. These are just tax receipts.
Well,
You-
you know, this is the right. This is the new growth we expect every year that gets to get tacked on above our Prop 2.5 increase. So every year, if a few new houses are built in town and then our tax base goes up, we tack on a little bit in new growth.
I'd be inclined in this area to maybe do a little bit more of a look at the houses that are coming on. I can think of roughly 6 new houses that are late stage construction in my mind right now, and at least it might give us a leg up for the future year that we're doing anyways, but just to kind of run that through with either, you know, the building department or whatever to say, is this, you know, like if we agree in that they say there's only going to be 6, then we modify this like to say something along the lines of the average per house times the number of new houses. I would think we'd be able to do that at least for the one future year. Well, what do you folks think of that?
So we do plan on meeting with all the stakeholders, planning board, building, to estimate what our growth would be for the following year. I think Bob's just kind of, 20,000 foot picture of kind of where we are now. We kind of have a static new growth without those Alta and Neshoba. So it's not super detailed in the later years.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I sort of took the average over the last 5 years, but you might be right, Don. We might be able to get some clearer insight, at least into the next year, maybe the next 2 years.
I think the
right.
difficulty,
Yeah, that's
go ahead, Don.
no, it's just I thought that may help us a little bit in the short term. Just look ahead and say, what do we really think is coming on, and what do we really think that it's going to be?
Bill, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of figuring out the timing of when these houses are going to come on to the tax rolls. It's going to be, you're going to have a partial year on some, just depending on when they're finished and occupied, right?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. So I think the task here is to see if we can get a clearer picture in the next couple of years. Other than that, unless folks think this should really be growing year to year, which we haven't seen much evidence of, it's right now set at 0. Okay, and then local receipts is 3% growth and state revenues is 3% growth. I think Marie might say that the state revenue increase is optimistic, going at 3% now.
Yes.
Yeah. what would be a more reasonable expectation? Does it grow at
0.5
all?
for state, I would say 0.5.
Hmm.
I would agree with that. It's pretty flat.
Oops. Hmm. Oh, wait, I violated my own model rules.
Oh, you broke a formula, Bill. Oh, boy.
Wait, that's supposed to go in over here. Okay, there we go. Okay, and is local receipts reasonable, 3%?
I think there will be a bump up in 27 based on the vehicles brought by Alta for excise, but outside of that, not seeing the amazing sharp trajectory. Turned into not
What do you think
these
about the,
numbers. Yeah.
I think it's
what
reasonable.
do you think about the transfer station stickers? Will that kick it up more?
Mhm.
Would 2% be closer to reality?
Try with 2. We'll find out next week what our marijuana going forward.
Marie, you're so optimistic.
I got all these alarms set for revenue. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's the revenue side. We have 3 models for expenditures. So if we start with the Model 1 low inflation, best case, well, best case in the sense of least money going out the door. What would the low end of salary and wages increases be?
Three.
3 seems like the low end. I mean, is there any chance the growth would be less than 3%?
I doubt it once you have steps and contracts and all in.
Okay, what about insurance? Best case scenario.
9%?
Oh,
Yikes.
8?
The thing which is hard is that in insurance, we've rolled in what we're also putting towards our OPEB liability.
mhm.
But if you take out health insurance, which is 800 some thousand of that, and increase it by maybe about 10 to 15%, just as an absolute best worst case. I mean, it's what we're hearing. We haven't seen it, but we've heard it today from our insurer.
Um,
So
Is that a one-time step up in insurance costs, or is it we would see those numbers year after year after year in terms of percentage increase?
it's unsustainable, but it's what we've seen in the past. This bump up is higher, but last year was for health insurance only 14.8.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Wow.
Brian, you got your hand up, go ahead.
Yeah, my sound cut out for a second, but we're talking about the Model 3 number for health insurance, is that right?
This is the Model 1 number, the best case scenario for the town.
And what was it 10%?
10% has been thrown out.
As the best case? I don't think that's right. I think it's more like 5, 10, and 12 or something like that for Model 1, 2, and 3.
And the other thing to keep in mind, I guess, is that in this very simple model, this same percentage gets applied for every year
yeah.
in the.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I was gonna say. I don't think we want to it would be crazy to see 10% year over year over year over year over year.
That's where I was going with my question to you, Marie. It's like, is this a one-time bump up or is it something we would expect every year?
So if on average, oh, this goes out for 10 years. So, you know,
If you look at our insurance category, though, it has two big pieces that are moving, right? One of them is our Worcester Regional Assessment, which is about 994K, right? That is going to go up at least 11%. Out of all the contributory retirement systems, Worcester is the lowest funded. So, and that 10%, I really do feel confident on.
Consistently also.
Yeah, a year upon year. I mean, just like bad pension system. And then the other large clump is health insurance of 856. Those increases aren't sustainable, but I'm not sure. And obviously our OPEB analysis caps that increase of health insurance at 4%, sort of like our CPI caps the health insurance's part of that basket of goods artificially. But I do see a hefty increase for 27 and successively, perhaps not double digit, but notable increases in successive years.
Kate, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if it would make sense to have a little bit of retrospective, like a 5-year look back on all of these to see what the actual numbers and increases have been, to try and look at, I mean, you know, if we've been at 10% plus for insurance increases every year in the last 5 years, I think it's some indication of, you know, what we can expect going forward.
Do we have that in the spreadsheet now, Bob, if you're using Notchkin's numbers?
We
Not
have
on
it.
this one, but I can do it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
We have it year to year on each spreadsheet, but the over time, yeah, I think that would be very helpful. The last couple of years may have been a little anomalous, but that can roll into the average.
It's also hard too if you have 2020 and 2021, because those were COVID and I don't know how representative they'll be.
Yeah.
Does going back 10 years give more of a, no, it's just another data point to at least look at.
In the private sector, when we do look back projections, we've stopped using the year 2020 and 2021. We basically skip it because it's so anomalous, so statistically warping of any trends. So we just look from 2019 backwards, and we look at 2020 going forward.
It really does skew the data.
Don, go ahead.
On a related portion of this, yeah, I don't have any input really on what the percentages increases are going to be, but in your calculations, you're calculating based on the budget, and I'd love to calculate based on the unadjusted actuals. So, you know, whatever the actuals were last year plus whatever percent would be the increase for 26.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did start it from the 26 budget numbers, which in some cases could differ from the FY25 actuals.
Right. Well, there's like 800,000 of money that wasn't spent. So right off the bat, we've got kind of a lower, if we use budget, the forecast is going to be overstated a little bit.
So I think, again, this is still just a high level. You know, eventually we'll have a very robust 10-year forecasting model, but it's very labor intensive, and I don't have the time now. Hopefully next year I will, but that's coming.
Okay, in the interest of not being all doom and gloom, what if we said 8% is best case scenario, 10% might be an expected case, and then 12% is the worst
For-
case? No?
For but realize the only half of that insurance number is moving up dramatically, but the other half isn't moving as much.
Mhm.
You know, our
Yeah.
workers' comp is fine, unemployment's fine.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to break out the insurance into separate categories? I know it's a lot more work, but
Okay. I mean, I can certainly do that. Yeah, okay. And then Marie, what do you think the numbers would look like on the insurance side then? If it were just insurance?
Just insurance between 5 and 7.
Okay. All right, so I think that's an action to me, is to add a little more fidelity to the model. Okay. The next input on the expenditure side is labeled other expenses, and I think we can consider that just really like the inflation rate. So it's everything else outside of these categories. So as placeholders, I threw in 1.5, 3, and 4. Maybe that's optimistic.
yeah, if I would say if you're trying to match the inflation rate, I would go with 2.5, 3, and 3.5. We're running about 2.93 right now, so
But if you want to have a high inflation rate, if your model is to show what it would be in high inflation, and I think it should be higher than 5. That's worst case scenario, right? Model 3,
Yeah.
like the worst of the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, this is an average over 10 years, so.
yeah, maybe do 2.5, 3.5, and 5, something like that.
This could be ugly. Okay. We hit salary and wages on the low inflation, but not the other two. So right now, for Model 2, it's 3.5%, and for Model 3, it's 4%. Thoughts on changing those? Is there a situation where the average increase in salaries will be more than 4%?
The average increase across all employees.
Right. Average across all employees.
Thinking across all, could
I'd
be
say yes.
Add new employees. Sorry, Marie, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking could be 4.5 to 5. But this is a worst case. I wouldn't bet my mortgage payment on that.
Okay.
You
Don, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention sort of something that may save you some aggravation on the insurance and benefits. If where you have like cell C12, if you put in like 11% times 0.6 and or 0.4 and then 5% times 0.6, you get a blended rate that would make the downstream formulas and stuff on your spreadsheet still work. But would get that split between the two into the numbers.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think I may split it out just so that in the future, a year from now, when I've forgotten that,
I, I hear you. I hear you. Yep, that's fair.
Oh, boy. Okay. The last cell here is education. And, you know, this is both of our assessments, the Neshoba and Minuteman. And these are placeholders. Thoughts on what these should be?
I don't have my dartboard handy, so I'm sorry I'm not able to provide anything. It's up in the air, truly.
This is where a couple of years look back would be helpful, the baseline.
Oh, well,
Minus,
we have that.
2020.
So that's the fourth tab. So this is only going back to 2020. And it's really the Neshoba assessment that really drives things because it's so much bigger than the Minuteman assessment.
Yeah.
But, you know, it has been in the 3 to 4% range for a while. This does not include the excluded debt. This is just their operating assessment. So
From an operational perspective, I would expect two things to drive their costs in the next few years. Number one is salary increases, and number two, any increased costs from moving into the new building. Or even decreased costs from moving into the new building, that'd be wonderful.
yeah. So I mean, that's sort of where the current numbers came from. The 3.5 is sort of seems like where things have been on average over the last few years. 3% is optimistic, and 5% is worst case.
I think those are reasonable numbers.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, and you know, all of you have the spreadsheet. You can feel free to play around with this in your free time if you want to model different scenarios. And we'll keep working on this. But the results then get displayed here, and you can see the curves. The green is the revenue curve, and the other three curves are the various models of expenditures. And then in the table where the cells are green, it's, you know, revenue exceeds expenditures, and where the cells are red, expenditures exceed revenue. Now, when a cell is red, it's not necessarily a crisis, because in some cases we're just barely exceeding revenues. You know, for example, this Model 2 moderate inflation in 2029, it's less than 200K above revenue. So, and it's a very high level model. So, you know, that doesn't necessarily indicate a crisis, but I think it starts to tell you, you know, when you have to start really thinking about what are the next steps, or what are some of the mitigation steps, or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, a little smoke on the horizon.
Right. Okay, so this might be a good place to pause on this. I think there's some more changes to make here, and we can have further discussions. And what I wanted to do is turn this into a bit of a PowerPoint presentation for the select board, not force them to endure all the spreadsheets. But I did want to talk for a second about this fourth tab on education. And what I tried to do here again, so this was a look back going to 2020. And you can take the, you know, our Bolton assessment in FY26, our operating assessment was about 19 million. If in our model, we said 3.5% increase in the operating assessment is what we were what we're planning for, what we're forecasting. This gives us a desired assessment, what we would like to see to be consistent with our model. The Bolton share of the assessment between the three towns happens to be 33%. So then you can just extrapolate, well, then the total assessment for all the towns, assuming that they were comfortable with the same percentage increase, would be, about 60 million. And every town can go through this exercise and come up with what they feel like a tolerable assessment would be for them. And then collectively, the three towns could come up with an assessment target. And there would have to be some negotiation about which towns, financial situation needs to be the driver. And so I will, I'll throw this out to advisory for consideration, but one of my thoughts is to recommend to the select board that we actually, the three towns, give the school district an assessment target and say, please keep the total assessments at or less than this target.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's good. One comment, I agree with your methodology. Your logic looks flawless. However, the bottom line wasn't the total school budget something, and this is based on my memory, like 70 million?
Yes.
Year?
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. So this would be the assessment target. They get additional funding that goes into their budget, like Chapter 70 funds from the state and other things.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, and certainly anything from state and federal governments is scary at this point.
Right.
Well, I agree. This would be really helpful to have a three-town target. I think it would also be good to align on their 10-year percentage, low, medium, and high growth rates, right? Get
right.
them to get on the record with us. What are they thinking? And let's at least align on a number. And then when we start to see deltas, we can pull them back and say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Well, they also are sitting on a reserve of 2.5 million right now. I mean, I hope the heck they're going to use most of that to keep their budget low.
When is their first budget workshop?
I think it's typically in January.
Yeah.
I don't know the date.
January.
Don't they have like a weekend or something like that?
Yeah. So we would have to get, the three towns would have to get together, come up with a target number, get it to the school probably before that first.
Yeah, I think if we don't get it to them before that weekend, then we've just lost the initiative.
Right.
I agree.
Now, as all of you know, the challenge here, though, is in sort of how do you ensure that this comes to fruition? Because the school district can obviously look at that and say, that target and say, thank you very much, but here's the budget, here are the assessments. So, will require some thought and discussion with the other towns on how you make sure this happens.
And the school committee. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't go anywhere unless the school committee approves it.
Okay. Any other discussion on kind of our future forecast? We have a little more work to do on this, but I'm hoping before the end of this calendar year, we can get a presentation to the select board. Kate, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I think one of the select board goals actually already is to have a tri-town meeting to talk about the school budget. So I think it is on the select board's radar already. So all this information probably would be very helpful for that.
Okay, if you'd like us to put anything together to help you in that meeting, we'd be happy to do that.
Hey, Bob, just really quickly, I have a couple of thoughts on just how we could go about this. So maybe you and I can connect offline,
Sure,
strategize.
sure, be happy to. Okay, great. So if there's, unless there are any more comments on this, I think we'll table the discussion on future forecasting for now and move on to our next agenda item, which is actually our capital stabilization fund. You'll recall this was actually Greg suggested this at some point last year, and it actually got over the finish line, and we made it happen in a warrant article at town meeting in May. So now we have a capital stabilization fund, and Maria's been kind enough to start drafting up sort of the regulations for the capital stabilization fund. Marie, do you want to?
Sure. Note that this is for discussion purposes, and the first order of business is to determine a funding source for the capital stabilization fund. By virtue of it being a flavor of stabilization fund, you would be required, with the exception of local receipts, to appropriate monies to that fund every year. We will appropriate $50,000 from XYZ to capital stabilization. For local receipts, we're required, should we want to go this route, of dedicating all or a fixed percentage, so long as it's greater than 25% of a particular fee. This dedication would hold for 3 years. There would not be the requirement for annual appropriation. All of this sounds pretty good, but remember what you just saw on Bob's spreadsheet of what are our local receipts. If you're dedicating your local receipts or a portion of your local receipts from, say, meals and room, then those monies aren't there for the revenue for the budget. So that's one option. It does sort of set an ongoing influx of funding. Some other communities set free cash as a portion of free cash to build both their general stabilization and their dedicated stabilization. Ninotchka and I had spoken about this, trying to figure out if there were existing targets, like, we obviously had to pay back our general stabilization last year, and that was one of the components of the override. But do we ever do a look forward measurement, like our general stabilization should be 4% of our operating budget? Should our capital stabilization be 1% of our budget? But this is something that would require advisory to consider, and then at town meeting, it would require an appropriation from our free cash rather, to the capital stabilization. And then the third tiny dollars is, article closeouts for unexpended. We typically, through Ninotchka's assiduous tracking, we'll appropriate the balance of one article to the next capital item and, fund things that way, versus if individuals and projects have come in, they've completed, then that closeout, just as a matter of policy, since it's a capital project, for the most part, would end up flowing to capital stabilization. My thing just to put out for purposes of discussion only is dedicating a portion of local meals and room excise capital stabilization. One could make this 25%. One could make this, 50%. We could include marijuana in there, which is the unknown. But it sort of creates a one and done, where that there are monies that would always be dedicated into that fund. And it would, in effect, answer too, well, then why are we, looking at our local meals, or if the Municipal Modernization Act passes and we can increase our local meals excise, well, why are we doing this? We're doing this in order to save and invest for capital. The other thing that had come up was that there may be some percentages, and here I'm looking at Ninotchka for our conversation, of policies that we'd already agreed in terms of appropriation of our free cash. And I think that that was something like greater than 5%.
Yes, if free cash was greater than 5%, the excess would go into stabilization fund, which I had forgotten that was a thing since we're never had it above 5%. But this year it equals about 614,000.
614,000 is the excess?
Is the excess above 5% that per our policy we should put in the stabilization fund. So that's great seed money.
Yeah. Well, Maria, I think these are all great suggestions. I like the idea of having some steady revenue source, even if it's not huge. And maybe it's a chunk of the local receipts, like 50% of local receipts seems reasonable. But I also like the idea of, seeding the fund and maybe occasionally injecting a larger amount of cash in there, just so it gets to the point where we can actually start using it in the near future, not 10 years from now.
Can you do both?
Yeah, no, I think we do both.
Mm-hmm.
Brian?
This might be a question for Marie or anybody, but did you have a timeline for when you were hoping the capital stabilization fund policy would be finalized? And the reason I'm asking is because I was I'll put in the chat a link to our current set of financial policies, and I was realizing like there may be other policies that we need to tweak the language of, so we may actually want a little bit of a more thorough red line of those policies once we decide what the substance of this one should be. Like, I'm not sure it's just a standalone. It might be an update to the whole set.
Yeah. All right. My ideal timeline, at least in terms of budgeting for fiscal 27, is having a general sense of advisory of what they would like to recommend at town meeting for, if it is local receipts of meals and, room excise. So we know when we're setting our own budget. So that's off the table. And so ideally, January, February, I'll generate the budget documents for the operating budget based on my guesses, but having some go forward by February would be awesome.
Oh yeah, and just to be clear, like I'm imagining that we could probably substantively agree early on what the policy will be, but then actually like finalizing it, editing it, and making sure it all
Cross-referencing, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just Ninotchka, if you can find where we have a reference to the anything above 5% in free cash automatically goes
It's in the financial policy under free cash.
in this set, because I was looking for it, I wasn't seeing it.
It's the one I have.
Well,
so hopefully
this
that's
goes to the point that we may need to update.
Review.
So
yeah, because Marie and I realized we were both looking at different revisions of
yeah.
the
So is this the set that we revised and voted on last year? There's a 2024 or 25 update.
Yeah, the link that I put in is the 24 revisions.
Revision.
So you think it got taken out and maybe I'm looking at an old revision?
I don't remember changing that. So it should be consistent, but anyway.
I can look tomorrow.
We should definitely check. Okay. All right, well, Marie, how do you want to proceed?
So what I would love, and I'm not sure what advisory schedule is, but if we could, discuss, or folks could mull the implications, send me questions if you want, like, well, what is our historical trend been, either in terms of free cash or in terms of our local meals, excise, and room occupancy. But this is something where advisory, in my estimation, would check for reasonableness, and then it would be a recommendation to the select board, who are tasked with setting the funding source as well as the administration of capital stabilization.
Okay, no, that sounds great.
The other component, which is on the following page, which is to Brian's point of updating our policies, the determining applicable uses is what makes sense to me, of letting that capital stabilization fund be sort of supplemental seed funding for multiple projects. So saying this is available to supplement something that is, a town match or a grant, but it is not the sole source of funding. The applicable projects, though, and that determination would require a change to the capital planning policies that I know advisory had updated in 2024. This is back to my request of hoping for a capital planning review process with other participants. And I know it's a big ask for advisory, because I know you've all blocked out your 13 or so meetings that'll be happening in calendar 26. But I would wonder if you would consider being an additional reviewer in the fall for capital. With
I
the,
think,
yeah.
yeah, I think we can definitely consider that. Does anyone have any concerns about advisory picking that up?
No,
Sounds like a relatively small ask, I think.
yeah, no, and
No.
I'm happy to help.
That would be great.
Okay, sign us up.
I will quote you, similar to John Cole saying he's looking forward to, he just wants to get raring. And then something else for folks to consider is for our regular stabilization, like when the monies were appropriated for the roof, that was a 2/3 vote. One of the wackier things about these subsidiary capital stabilization and the like is that it would require only a simple majority. So in a down the road thinking about it, if we have a substantial balance, do we want to have a higher gating criteria or not? And that, I defer to the committee. The town. It's just something to be aware of.
Okay. All right, no, this is great. Lots to think about, and we're happy to help however we can. And yeah, so we will, if we have questions or input, we'll get those to you, Marie, and folks can feel free to
That'd be
reach
awesome.
out to Marie directly. And when you get to the point where you think you'd like to have a vote on it from advisory, we're happy to schedule that.
Okay.
Okay,
Marie,
excellent.
would you mind distributing this document?
Delighted to.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion on the Capital Stabilization Fund? All right, if not, the last item on our agenda is we have one set of minutes to approve. Let's see. Okay, these are the minutes from our July 15th meeting when we had a couple of closeout items. Any questions or comments on the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve the advisory committee meeting minutes from July 15th?
I'll make a motion to approve the July 15th advisory committee minutes.
Got a second?
Okay, roll call. Bill,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Excellent. Okay, one other item of business. So I think as everyone's aware, there's a special town election that's coming up on October 6th. Bill Nichols is running for the open seat on the select board. So there's a very good chance that this is Bill's last advisory committee meeting. So I just wanted to publicly thank Bill Nichols for your years of service to the advisory committee. You have been a great partner and have been a calm, thoughtful, and very insightful voice on the committee. And I've appreciated all your input and all your work, and especially all your work getting all the minutes transcribed and collated and organized. And it's been great working with you on the committee. And we look forward to working with you in your new role down the road.
Well, thank you. It's been fun working with everybody and learning the intricacies of this this budget.
And as you can see, you don't get excused from future advisory meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else have any other business to discuss? Next meeting, probably at some point in October, maybe we'll have another go round with this future forecast thing. Okay, is there
Night, everybody.
a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, great, excellent. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Good, everybody.
Thanks.
Night.
Night.
Thank you.